Something made him drive there. A pull he couldn't name. Kang Ji-hoon hadn't set foot on his grandfather's farm in 3 years. Damyang, 2 hours south of Seoul. Forgotten land, overgrown fields, a place he'd inherited and never visited. The property sat untouched, neglected, a relic of a simpler time his family had moved beyond. But that Tuesday morning, something whispered, "Go." He couldn't explain it, didn't try to. He just grabbed his keys, canceled his morning meetings with a single text, and drove south. The gate was rusted, but open. Someone had been here, recently. Bamboo forests lined the narrow road, dense and green, swaying in the morning wind. He expected silence, abandonment, weeds choking out whatever his grandfather had planted decades ago. Nothing but ghosts and decay. Then he heard it. Laughter. Children's laughter. His foot hit the brake. The car stopped on the dirt path, engine idling. He sat there, hands gripping the wheel, listening. High-pitched giggles. Small voices calling out in Korean. But that was impossible. This land had been empty for years. No one lived here. No one came here. Ji-hoon stepped out. His dress shoes sank into soft earth, mud already seeping into expensive leather. He followed the sound around the old stone farmhouse his grandfather had built with his own hands, past the persimmon trees that still bore fruit every autumn despite decades of neglect, past the well with its wooden bucket, past the storage shed where tools hung exactly as his grandfather had left them. And then he saw her, a woman, kneeling in the rice paddies, black dress that looked handmade, simple and practical, white apron tied at her waist, already stained with mud and work. Her back was to him, but he knew that posture, the way she moved, careful, deliberate, like every motion mattered, like every task deserved her full attention. His breath caught in his throat. 3 small boys played near the water's edge. Identical red shirts, probably purchased as a set. Dark hair catching morning sunlight, turning almost bronze. One splashed his brother, tiny hands cupped to send water flying. Another ran on unsteady toddler legs, arms out for balance. The third bent down by the irrigation channel, picking up stones, examining each one with the seriousness only small children possess, like he was discovering diamonds instead of river rocks. Ji-hoon's world tilted on its axis. The woman stood, brushed dirt from her knees, turned slowly, like she'd known he was there all along, wiped her hands on her apron with measured movements. Adeze Okafor, his former housemaid, the woman who'd vanished 3 years ago without explanation, without goodbye, without leaving any trace except the hole her absence had carved in his chest. The woman he'd searched for in those first desperate weeks, calling her disconnected number over and over, sending his assistant to her last known address only to find it empty. The woman he'd mourned for in ways he never admitted to anyone, not even himself. She didn't run, didn't look surprised or afraid, only quietly watchful. She just stood there, in the rice paddy, mud to her ankles, watching him with those steady brown eyes that had always seen too much. One of the boys noticed him, stopping mid-splash. He stared with unguarded curiosity. Those eyes. Ji-hoon felt the earth drop away. Those eyes were his mother's eyes, dark brown, slightly upturned, a family trait. And that chin. The boy had the slight cleft every Kong man had. His grandfather, his father, him. A genetic marker louder than any document. The boy tilted his head, curious and unafraid. Ji-hoon saw his own childhood face looking back from old photographs. The same expression, the same angle. The world narrowed to that small face, then expanded to the other 2 boys, all watching, all carrying markers he saw in his own mirror every morning. His knees went weak. Adeweze walked toward him slowly. No fear, no apology, just the steady movement of someone who'd made peace with hard truths. She stopped 3 feet away, close enough to speak, far enough to maintain boundaries. She introduced them like visiting dignitaries, each name pronounced with care and love. Chidi, Kelechi, Somto. Igbo names, traditional and strong. She'd given them her heritage, since they couldn't have his. Then she shattered his carefully constructed reality. They're yours, Jihun. All 3, 2.5 years old. Born 6 months after I left. Raised here, on this land. Well, you lived your life in soul, completely unaware. The world stopped. Time suspended. Every sound muted except his own pounding heart. 3 sons. His sons. Playing in the mud on land he'd forgotten. Raised by a woman he'd loved and lost. For almost 3 years he'd known nothing. While he discussed mergers in boardrooms, these boys were learning to walk, learning to talk, learning that their father didn't exist. Before we continue, understand something. Maybe you walked away from a life that's still calling you back. Maybe you're carrying weight alone, wondering if anyone sees your struggle. This story is for you, because God doesn't forget. He redeems our pain and desperate prayers. He whispers when we've stopped listening and calls when we've stopped hoping. If we're brave enough to listen and willing to risk everything, He leads us back to what we abandoned. If you're ready to see what happens when a man finally answers that call, subscribe and stay with me. Hit that notification bell. Jihun's journey is just beginning, and yours might be too.
The farmhouse smelled like ginger and sesame oil. Someone actually lived here, built a real life within these walls. Children's drawings, crayon scribbles of animals or trees covered one wall. 3 small futons lined the corner, each with a stuffed animal sitting guard. A wooden toy box overflowed with hand-carved figures, the kind you make with time, not money. Adeyez poured tea with steady hands. Jihun sat at the low table, still in shock, while the boys watched from the doorway, curious but cautious, old enough to sense tension, young enough to not understand it. She told him everything. Her voice was even, delivering facts with the calm of someone who'd rehearsed this 1,000 times. 3 years ago, your grandmother found us. The morning after your grandfather's funeral, she let herself into your penthouse, saw me leaving your bedroom, and saw the truth written on both our faces. Jihun remembered that night, the crushing grief, the moment of connection with Adeyez that felt more real than his carefully constructed life. One night that created 3 lives neither had planned. His grandmother had offered 50 million won. The deal was simple. Take the money, disappear, and never contact Jihun. You're destroying his future. He has responsibilities, a proper wife to marry. You'll ruin him if you stay. Adeyez took it, not for greed, but because her mother was dying in Lagos from kidney failure. 50 million won could save her life and lift her family out of poverty. What choice did she have? She got on the plane arranged by her grandmother's staff, the money transferred. She had saved her mother, but sitting in the terminal, a voice whispered, "Wrong. This is wrong." She watched the flight take off without her. She just knew, deep down, she couldn't leave yet. She stayed, renting a tiny apartment in Suwon. She found work, managing a restaurant kitchen, and stretched that 50 million won to send money home. 2 months later, the nausea she'd ignored was morning sickness. Her first ultrasound revealed triplets. She tried to reach him. His number disconnected. His office security blocked her. Letters returned unopened. His grandmother had been thorough. Adeyez stopped trying, accepting she would raise her children alone. 4 months pregnant, his grandmother found her again. The old woman saw the pregnancy and the 3 heartbeats on the ultrasound photos. She made a new offer. "You can live on my son's abandoned farm in Bengyang. I will provide shelter and resources, but you will never contact Ji-hun. When the boys turn 5, you will take them back to Nigeria and never return. If you refuse, I have the means to destroy your family in Lagos." Adeyes agreed, for her sons, for her family. The grandmother kept her word. Adeyes made the farmhouse livable, taught herself farming, and raised her 3 boys who knew nothing but this land and her love. His grandmother died 6 months ago. The deposits stopped, but by then Adeyes had made the farm productive enough to sustain them. She'd thought about leaving, but the boys loved this place, the rice paddies and bamboo forests. This was their home and their heritage, so she stayed, proving she could raise 3 sons alone and build something real from nothing. And Ji-hun had never come. 3 years, his land, his property, the place his beloved grandfather had built, and he'd never visited once. So Adeyes had made her peace with it. He'd moved on. Maybe these boys were better off without a father who'd forgotten them before he even knew they existed. Ji-hun sat across from her, devastated. She was right. He'd changed everything after she left. New numbers, new security. His grandmother had convinced him Adeyes had used him, taken the money, and ran back to Nigeria. He'd believed it because believing was easier than confronting how much her absence hurt. He'd locked every door, burned every bridge, made himself unreachable because staying accessible meant staying vulnerable. But he'd just been a coward, too weak to search harder, too proud to admit he might have been wrong, too comfortable in his pain to risk hoping. And this farm, his grandfather's legacy, the land the old man had loved more than anything, he'd inherited and forgotten it, too busy with board meetings and merger negotiations, too modern to care about country land and rice paddies. He'd meant to sell it eventually. He just hadn't gotten around to it yet. And the whole time, his sons were here, growing, learning, becoming people without him.
A small sound pulled him from his guilt. The youngest boy, Somto, had crept closer. He held something in his tiny fist, watching Ji-hun with those impossible eyes. Adeyes tensed, but Somto moved before she could stop him. The boy approached slowly, 3 feet away, 2 feet, then right in front of Ji-hun. He stared up at this stranger, who looked like the photographs Oma kept hidden, the man she sometimes cried about when she thought they were all asleep. Somto slowly opened his hand. A smooth gray stone sat in his palm, river rock, worn soft by water, pretty in the way only children understand. An offering, a gift, a bridge extended from innocence. Ji-hun's throat closed. He looked at Adeyes. She watched, barely breathing. This moment balanced on a knife's edge. He knelt down slowly, brought himself to eye level with his son, this tiny person who shared his blood and knew nothing about him. "Can I see it?" Somto nodded once. Solemn. Ji-hun took the stone, still warm from the boy's hand. Simple, perfect, more valuable than anything in his penthouse, his office, his entire carefully curated life. "Thank you. I'll keep this forever." Somto smiled, small, uncertain, then turned and ran back to his brothers. The 3 boys whispered together, probably discussing this strange man who made Oma tense. Ji-hun stayed on his knees, stone clutched in his fist, feeling something crack open in his chest. 3 years of bedtimes he hadn't been there for. First words he hadn't heard. Tiny hands that should have been reaching for him since birth. Gone. Lost. He looked up at Adeyes. This woman who'd raised his sons alone with no support. This woman who'd been tested in ways he couldn't imagine and passed every test. This woman who'd built a life from nothing and asked nothing in return. Tell me what to do. Please. I don't know how to fix this, but I'll do anything. She studied him. This man in his expensive suit. This man with soft hands that had never held a shovel or carried a child through fever dreams. This stranger whose blood ran in 3 small bodies she'd grown and birthed and raised alone. You want to be their father? Yes. God, yes. Then prove it. Her voice was steel wrapped in silk. Show up tomorrow, 5 a.m. Work clothes, not business attire. These hands, she took his hand, turned it over, examined his soft palms. These are city hands. Make them farm hands. I need to see if you can be consistent before you try to be their appa. This farm needs work. The irrigation is broken. The rice paddies need maintenance. The vegetable garden needs tending. There's always work. If you're serious, you'll be here, every day, working. Earning the right to be part of their lives. Proving you understand what it means to show up when everything hurts and you're exhausted, but you stay anyway because that's what love is. Show me that, and we'll talk about what comes next. And if I do, then maybe, after you've proven you can sustain consistency, we'll talk about letting them know who you are. But I won't let you waltz in here, disrupt their world, and then disappear when reality gets hard. These boys deserve a father who stays, who shows up when it's convenient and when it's not. Prove you can be that man, and we'll move forward. Fail, and you leave and never come back. Those are the terms.
Ji-hoon stood, looked at the stone in his hand, then at the boys in the doorway, then at this woman giving him a chance he didn't deserve. I'll be here, tomorrow, and every day after, for as long as it takes. I promise. Adeyesa didn't smile, just nodded once. We'll see. He walked back to his car on unsteady legs. The stone burned in his pocket. Behind him he heard the boys' voices rise again in play. His sons, 3 perfect humans he'd helped create and knew nothing about. At his car, Ji-hoon paused, looked back. Adeyesa stood on the porch, arms crossed, watching, making sure he actually left, making sure he understood that she was in charge here, that she'd earned that authority through 3 years of showing up when no one else would. She'd raised their sons alone, with no support, no help, no partner to share the burden. She'd been both parents because he'd been neither. She was right to test him, right to demand consistency before trust, because he'd already failed them once, and words meant nothing now. Only action mattered. Ji-hoon drove back to Seoul with that stone on his passenger seat. He didn't go to his penthouse. He sat in his car and called his assistant. Clear my calendar. Everything. For the next month. Sir? Her confusion was audible. You have the merger presentation on Thursday. The board meeting next Monday. I don't understand. Cancel it all. I don't care what excuses you make. Family emergency, personal crisis, whatever works. But I won't be available. A pause. May I ask why? I just found out I'm a father. To 3 sons. 2.5 years old. And I've already missed 3 years of their lives. Every first word, every first step. Every moment they needed their father and he wasn't there. I've failed them for 3 years. I won't fail them for 1 more day. He hung up, turned off his phone, and sat in darkness and thought about what came next. That night he didn't sleep. Too much grief for time lost. Too much desperate hope for time that might still be salvaged. He sat at his dining room table, surrounded by expensive furniture and all the trappings of success, and held that river stone. Just held it. Felt its weight and its reality. A gift from a son who didn't know him. An offering from innocence. Trust given before it was earned. Grace extended before it was deserved. At 4:30 the next morning, he was back, parked on the dirt road. The sky was still dark, stars fading. Ji-hoon sat in his car waiting, wondering if Asa had believed him. At 5 exactly, a light came on in the farmhouse. Then the door opened and Asa appeared, 2 steaming cups in her hands. She walked to his car, unhurried, unsurprised, like she'd known he'd be there. "You came," she said through the window. "I said I would." She handed him 1 cup. Instant coffee. Terrible and perfect. A test passed. "Rice paddies. The irrigation channels are completely clogged. You're digging them out today. It's hard work. Your clothes will be ruined." Ji-hoon looked down at himself. Work clothes borrowed from his building's maintenance manager. New boots. Hands that had never held anything heavier than a pen. "Show me where." The work was brutal. His back screamed within 30 minutes. Hands blistered within the first hour. Soft skin tearing on shovel handles. Knees ached from kneeling in mud. Sweat soaked through his shirt by 6 a.m. By 8 he thought he might pass out. By 10 he wasn't sure he could stand. By noon every part of him hurt. But every time he looked up, 3 small boys watched from the porch, whispering, curious about this stranger doing the hard labor their Oma usually did alone. And Asa worked alongside him in the next field, never offering help, never offering sympathy, expecting nothing, accepting no excuses. This was the test. Not just physical endurance, but willingness to be humbled. Whether his pride would survive being terrible at something, whether he'd quit when it got too hard. Ji-hoon kept digging, kept hauling mud and debris, kept working even when his body begged him to stop. Because 3 boys were watching, and 1 woman was waiting to see if he was serious or just guilty.
Day 3 arrived with a body that could barely move. Every muscle screamed. Blisters had become calluses, had become new blisters. But he showed up, 5 a.m., coffee from Ada Ease, work assignments delivered without praise, just tasks that needed doing. By noon, he collapsed by the well, couldn't move, sat there in the dirt, back against stone. A sound made him look up. Small footsteps. Kelechi appeared around the corner. Middle son, quietest one. He carried a cup of water in both hands, concentrating hard on not spilling. He stopped 3 feet away, set the cup down, looked at him, didn't speak, then ran back toward the farmhouse. Ji-hoon reached for the water, drank deeply, and felt something shift. Not acceptance yet, but acknowledgement. The boy had seen him struggling and responded with kindness. A small gesture that meant everything. Progress. Tiny. Fragile. Real. Day 5 brought a new development. All 3 boys ventured outside while Ji-hoon worked. Not to greet him, just to play near where he was repairing fence posts. They built the dam in the irrigation channel he'd just cleared, giggling when water broke through, starting over with the determination only children possess. Chidi directed his brothers like a tiny general. Samto found the best stones. Kelechi worked quietly, patiently. They were a team, 3 parts of a whole that had learned to function perfectly without him. Ji-hoon watched while pretending not to, memorizing their faces, their voices, the way Samto chewed his lip when concentrating, how Kelechi hummed while playing, how Chidi always made sure his brothers got equal turns. These were his sons, and he knew nothing about them except what he could observe from 10 feet away. Didn't know their favorite foods or their fears. 3 years of knowledge he'd never gain back. But he had now. This moment.
This chance. And maybe, if he did it right, he'd have years ahead.
That afternoon, A to Z brought him lunch. Rice and kimchi in a dented metal container. Split to feed him because she'd noticed he hadn't brought food. "You're doing better than I expected," she said. "I'm terrible at this." "Yes, but you're showing up. That matters more." She paused. "They ask about you. Chidi asked if you're the stranger who's helping us. I said yes. He asked if you're staying. I said I don't know yet, that it depends on whether you keep coming back or if you decide this is too hard and return to Seoul. I'm staying. Not just for the 30 days, I'm staying." "Words are easy, Ji-hoon. Actions are what count." "Then let me prove it. Watch me. I'll pass whatever you require." She almost smiled. Almost. Then she collected the empty container and went back to work, leaving him with something that might have been hope. On day 8, everything changed. Ji-hoon was repairing fence posts when he heard it. A car engine. Expensive. Wrong sound for this place. He looked up, stomach dropping. A black Mercedes, his mother's car. Madame Kang Hae-jin stepped out in a designer hanbok. Perfect hair, perfect makeup. Everything radiating wealth and power. She surveyed the farm with cold eyes. A to Z straightened from the vegetable garden, wiped her hands, faced the woman who'd shaped her life for 3 years without showing fear. Just dignity. "You," Hae-jin said, voice like ice. "I should have known you'd cause problems. My mother-in-law was too soft. She should have sent you back to Nigeria. I've caused no problems. I've been exactly where mother-in-law told me to be. Until you told my son, until you disrupted his life with these..." She gestured toward the boys peeking out from behind A to Z's skirt. "I didn't tell him anything. He showed up on his own." "Then make that reality. My mother-in-law is dead. Her deals died with her. You have 24 hours to pack. I'll wire you money. Take these children and leave Korea. This ends now." "No," Ji-hoon said. His mother's gaze snapped to him, took in his mud-covered clothes, his blistered hands. Her expression showed disgust. "Excuse me?" "I said no. These are my sons, your grandsons. They're not going anywhere. Those are not my grandsons. Those are the illegitimate children of a domestic worker who trapped you. She didn't trap me. Grandmother did. She hid them from me for almost 3 years. She lied. She paid A to Z to disappear. She threatened A to Z's family. Grandmother trapped everyone. My mother-in-law protected you. Do you understand what will happen if this gets out? Your engagement to Han Se-yan will be canceled. The merger will collapse. The board will question your judgment. You will lose everything. Your position, your reputation, your future, all for 3 children you didn't know existed until days ago? Is that really worth it?" Ji-hoon felt certainty settle in his chest, as clear as temple bells. "Then I'll lose everything. If that's the cost of knowing my sons, I'll pay it." His mother's face tightened. "You don't mean that. You're caught up in emotion, but reality will settle in. The work will get boring, the children will be difficult. She gestured toward A to Z with contempt, will start making demands and you'll realize you threw everything away. I've spent days doing back-breaking labor, destroying my hands, and I'll keep doing it, every day. These are my sons, my blood, my responsibility, and I'm not walking away."
The silence stretched. Finally, his mother smiled, cold, sharp. "Choose them, and I will cut you off completely. No company support, no family resources, no inheritance, nothing. You'll have this worthless farm and these children and nothing else. Is that really what you want?" He looked at Araes, at the boys, at the life they'd built without him. "That's more than enough." His mother stared, then got back in her car and left, tires spitting gravel. Ji-hoon turned to find all 3 boys staring, wide eyes. Chidi's small hand gripped Arae's. "Is that the bad grandmother?" Chidi whispered. Arae's looked at Ji-hoon, asking permission. He nodded. "Yes, baby," she said quietly. "That's the grandmother who wanted you to hide. But you don't have to hide anymore. Your father knows about you now, and he's not going anywhere." Chidi asked, "Is he really our Appa?" Arae's knelt down. "Yes, he's your Appa, and he's trying very hard to earn the right to be part of your lives. That's why he's here every day, working." All three boys turned to stare at Ji-hoon with new eyes, not a stranger anymore, but Appa, father. Something changed after that day. The boys stopped maintaining distance, started venturing closer, asking questions. What was he fixing? Could they help? Could they bring him water? Ji-hoon said yes to everything. "Yes, you can help. Yes, you can hand me that. Yes to every small bridge his sons tried to build."
Week 3 arrived with spring heat. The days grew longer and hotter, but Ji-hoon's body had started adapting. Blisters became calluses. Muscles began to remember how to work. His hands looked different, rougher, darker from the sun. Real farm hands now. He was mucking out the chicken coop when he heard it, crying, soft, muffled, coming from the house. Ji-hoon set down his shovel and walked quietly to the window. The boys were napping, but in the main room, Araze sat on the floor, head in hands, shoulders shaking. He'd never seen her cry, not once, not when explaining his grandmother's threats, not when describing 3 years alone, not when facing his mother's cruelty. Always strong, always composed. But now, in this moment she thought no one could see, she broke. Ji-hoon understood the weight she'd carried, the constant fear of trusting him, the exhaustion of being strong for 3 tiny lives, the terror that he'd leave when reality got hard, the hope, dangerous and fragile, that maybe this time would be different. 3 years of carrying everything, 3 years of never breaking, and now the possibility that she might not have to be everything anymore. That terrified her more than continuing alone, because hoping meant risking. Ji-hoon didn't go inside. She needed this moment. But he renewed his vow. He would prove himself every single day, until fear became trust, until hope became certainty.
Day 27 brought the most significant shift. Ji-hoon arrived at 5 a.m. When Ada opened the door, he noticed something different. The low dining table, usually set for 4, now 5. 5 places, 5 bowls, 5 spoons. She didn't explain, just worked on breakfast. But the message was clear. Stay. Eat with us. You've earned this. The meal was simple. Rice, soup, vegetables from the garden. But it was perfect. The boys settled into their usual spots. Ji-hoon sat at that 5th place, hands shaking, throat tight. Kelechi put extra kimchi in his bowl without being asked. Somto insisted on sitting directly beside him. And Chidi watched with serious eyes. Then Chidi spoke. "Can you read us a story tonight?" A question, an invitation, a test. Ji-hoon could barely respond. "Yes, I'd love to." Chidi smiled, small but real. That night became one of the most important of Ji-hoon's life. After dinner, after baths, he sat with 3 boys in their room. Small futons on the floor, stuffed animals arranged carefully, nightlight casting soft shadows. He read them a story about a tiger and a persimmon. His voice cracked multiple times. He had to stop to collect himself, but he finished. When he came outside, Ada waited on the porch. Stars were emerging overhead. "You did well today," she said quietly. "I did nothing special, just showed up." "That's everything, Ji-hoon. Don't you understand? Showing up is everything. Most people don't. They make promises they don't keep. But you've shown up every single day for almost 4 weeks. You've been consistent. That's the foundation of everything else." He moved to stand beside her, close enough to feel her presence, but respecting the boundaries that still existed. "I love them." His voice was quiet, but certain. "I know I have no right. I know 3 weeks doesn't erase 3 years, but I love them. And I love you. I've loved you since before I was smart enough to admit it. And I'm sorry for not searching harder, for believing my grandmother's lies. For all of it, I'm so sorry." Ada's eyes filled with tears. "I loved you too. I never stopped. Even when I was angry, even when I thought you'd abandoned us, I couldn't stop loving you. And that terrified me because loving someone who isn't there is the loneliest thing in the world."
Then let me be here, really here. Not just for 30 days, but forever. Marry me. Not because of the boys, though I want to be their father more than anything, but because I want you, want to share this life we're building, want to be your partner in everything. Just me, the man who finally figured out what matters.
Silence stretched, long enough that Ji-hoon feared he'd moved too fast. Then Adaize spoke. "If we do this, your life changes completely. Your mother will disown you, the board might remove you, society will judge us, we might lose everything. Let them judge. I'd rather have nothing with you than everything without you. We might struggle. This farm doesn't make much money yet. It won't be the life you're used to. I'm already happier here than I ever was in Seoul. Covered in mud, hands destroyed, happier than I've ever been. Because this is real. This matters. You matter. They matter. That's enough." Adaize smiled through tears. "Then yes. Yes, I'll marry you. Because you showed up. Because you proved yourself. Because these boys need a father who stays. And because I need a partner who understands that love is work and work is love. And both require showing up, even when everything hurts." Ji-hoon pulled her close, held her, breathed her in. He was getting a second chance. Not many people got those, but he was getting a chance to rebuild, to become the man his family needed. Day 30 arrived. The test was officially over, but Ji-hoon kept showing up, because the point wasn't 30 days. The point was forever. His assistant called. The board had called an emergency meeting. Rumors were spreading. The Han family was demanding explanations. His mother was telling her version of events. He needed to return, address it, control the narrative. Ji-hoon made the decision. He'd go back, face it, but not alone. He drove to Seoul with Adaize beside him and 3 car seats in the back. The boys had never been to the city. They stared out windows at tall buildings, at crowds, overwhelmed, but curious, holding hands. At the company building, security tried to stop them, but Ji-hoon walked past with authority that had nothing to do with suits or titles. The boardroom fell silent when they entered. 15 executives, his fiancée, Han Se-yeon, and her father at the far end, his mother beside them, perfectly composed. Ji-hoon moved to the head of the table. Adaize stood beside him. The boys pressed against her legs. He told them everything. No apologies, just facts. 3 years ago, I had a relationship with Adaize Okafor. My grandmother paid her to leave without telling me she was pregnant. My grandmother hid this information from me for almost 3 years. Adaize raised our sons alone on my family's farm. I discovered them 1 month ago. I've spent 30 days proving I deserve to be their father. These are my sons, Kang Chidi, Kang Kelechi, and Kang Somto. I'm claiming them publicly, legally, completely. The room erupted. His fiance's father stood. The engagement is over. The merger is cancelled. You've humiliated us. His mother. You're destroying everything we built. The chairman. This is a disaster. We'll be forced to vote you out as CEO. Through it all, Adaize stood steady. The boys watched, and Ji-hoon felt peace. Then it's a disaster. Fire me if you need to. I'm not sorry. I'm not hiding them. If loving my family destroys my career, so be it. He turned to leave. Adaize's hand found his. They walked out of that glass tower into sunshine. At the door, the chairman called out, "If you walk out now, you're finished." Ji-hoon looked back. Then fire me. I already found what matters. The fallout was brutal. His mother cut him off completely. The board voted him out 48 hours later. His engagement was terminated in the media. Headlines everywhere: fallen heir, scandal, disgrace. But Ji-hoon drove back to the farm and didn't feel loss. He felt freedom. 6 months passed. The vineyard thrived. Ji-hoon had used his business knowledge and Adaize's farming expertise to transform the land. Organic Korean grapes, small production, high quality. It would never make him a billionaire again, but it fed his family, built something sustainable and real. The boys ran through vine rows every evening, laughing and growing stronger. They were bilingual now, switching between Korean and Igbo. Chidi helped with the harvest. Kelechi named every chicken. Somto still collected stones, but gave the prettiest ones to Appa every evening.
The wedding was small and perfect, just them, under bamboo trees. Adaize wore a simple white dress she'd made herself. The boys wore matching hanbok. Ji-hoon cried through his vows. I promise to show up every day, no matter what. In sickness and health isn't just traditional words, it's truth. It's what love is. Presence. Consistency. Being there when everything is hard and when everything is easy. I promise that. I promise you. I promise them. That's all I know how to promise, but it's everything. Adaize smiled through tears. It's enough. You're enough. We're enough. Now evening settled over the farm. The family sat on the porch watching sunset paint the valley gold. Somto climbed into Ji-hoon's lap. Chidi and Kelechi leaned against their father's sides. Appa, Somto said, tell the story again. Which story? How you found us? Ji-hoon looked at Adaize. She smiled. This had become their favorite story. Once there was a man who forgot what mattered. He worked and worked in a tall building in a big city, had money and power, but he felt empty, lost. Then one day, something whispered to him, a voice he couldn't ignore. So he drove to a forgotten place, a farm his grandfather built, land he'd inherited and never visited. And there, in the dirt and rice paddies, he found his whole world waiting. 3 sons he'd never known about, a woman he'd never stopped loving, and a life more real than anything he'd left behind. The boys giggled, knowing the story by heart. Ji-hoon continued, voice soft. People ask if I regret giving up my company, giving up my money. I don't. Not even a little, because I learned something. True legacy isn't what you build in boardrooms. It's who you show up for. God doesn't measure success by money.
He measures it by love, by the hands you hold, by the promises you keep, by the lives you touch just by being present. He pulled his family closer. That morning I drove here, I thought it was my decision, but it wasn't. God whispered. He called. He guided. And I finally listened. He'd been calling for years, but I'd been too busy to hear. But that morning, I heard, and I obeyed, and he led me home. Adaze leaned against his shoulder. You did good, Ji-hoon. We're doing good. Every day. That's the point. Not that we arrived somewhere, but that we keep showing up, keep choosing this. The boys fell asleep as stars emerged. Ji-hoon carried each son to bed, tucked them in, whispered prayers over their sleeping forms. When he came back outside, Adaze waited. I never thought we'd be here, she said quietly. God did. He knew. That whisper that made me drive here wasn't an accident. That was him, calling me back, giving me a chance I didn't deserve. She kissed him, soft and real and tasting like home.
Inside, 3 boys dreamed. Safe. Loved, knowing their appa would be there when they woke. That he'd made a choice. Them. Always them. And that choice had cost him everything society valued and given him everything God knew he needed. Because sometimes God whispers, and if you're brave enough to listen, foolish enough to obey, and willing to lose everything you thought mattered, you'll find what actually does. Show up. Stay. Love without condition. Keep promises even when they're hard. Choose people over profit. Choose presence over pride. That's the legacy that matters. That's the inheritance that lasts. And if you're watching this because you're standing at your own crossroads, wondering if you should answer a call that makes no sense, let this story be your sign. Listen to what's whispering in your heart. Go to the forgotten places. Show up when every logical reason says stay home. God's whispers lead to unexpected destinations, and sometimes those forgotten places hold everything you've been searching for. Ji-hoon learned this truth. Adaeze lived it. 3 boys thrived because 2 people finally stopped running and started showing up. Now it's your turn. What whisper are you ignoring? What forgotten place is calling you back? What really matters? And are you brave enough to choose it? Think about that.
Thank you for watching till the end. This means everything to me. I remain Onyx, aka K Afro Tales, and I say stay glued for more beautiful stories and check out more of our stories on our channel page. May God bless you, and once again, thank you for watching.